the world's #1 podcasting platform for African stories. Happy International Podcast Day. My name is Gathoni. I am the community manager at Afripods. Afripods is a Pan-African hosting and distribution platform that is focused on building the largest library of African audio stories on the planet. Thank you so much for making the time to be with me today. And today we are going to be talking about the importance of representation in podcasting. Do you think it's important? Do you not? My panelists today are Chris, Anna, Farah, and Zachary. I will let each of you introduce yourself. And my first question to you is, please tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself, and how you'd introduce yourself to someone who has never heard about you. I think it's an important question. I like to ask it that way because a lot of times what I think is the priority might not be what you feel is the priority in your introduction. So, Chris, I'll start with you. Tell me who you are and a little bit about yourself.
And of course, you asked me right as the sirens start up again. So apologies here if you hear any sirens behind me. I am okay. It is just the surrounding New York area that is crazy. So I'm Chris Colbert. I am the founder and CEO of DCP Entertainment, as well as a studio in New York City called Podstream Studios Times Square. I am not recording there now, so this is not indicative of what it sounds like in my studio. But it's just a busy day, so I'm recording from home. With DCP Entertainment, we are a media production company that is all about telling the stories of underrepresented communities. So people of color, women, LGBTQ+, people with disabilities, basically telling those stories of communities that don't necessarily have the mainstream platforms. And even when they are on those platforms, don't necessarily have the right kind of storytellers or the right kind of marketing and press and support to be able to get their stories out. And so I myself, in terms of how I introduce myself, I do come out of the media legacy world. I used to work in Sirius XM radio, but I very much came into podcasting to help to create a more diverse and more equitable landscape for people of color in particular, but also those underrepresented communities. So I'm going to steal one of Anna's terms, and I was hoping she was going to go first, so I didn't feel bad about this, but I very much feel like I'm a social entrepreneur, like my friend Anna here is as well.
Amazing. Farah, I'll come to you next. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you're doing.
So my name is Farah, and I'm all about promoting positive personal growth through self-appreciation and acceptance. I'm a digital creative. I'm a writer, speaker, content creator, and podcaster, and the host of my own podcast called Self-Care Chat with Farah, where I talk about self-love and life experiences with my guests. And outside of that, I am also the founder of the Farah Foundation, where we work to advocate for awareness and policy development for autoimmune and chronic disease patients, a cause that is near and dear to me as someone living with scleroderma, which is a rare autoimmune disorder.
Amazing. Nice to meet you, Farah. Anna, I'll let you go next because Chris said he stole some of your words. I don't know if you have new ones yet, but tell us a bit about yourself.
I don't have new words because I really like those. And I don't mind if my friend Chris uses them too, because he is a social entrepreneur. Great to be here. Glad to be on the panel with y'all. I am Anna Deshawn. Pronouns, anything respectful is great. I always say that I build social and cultural platforms for underrepresented voices, right? So that for me, that looks like in real life, E3 Radio, which is our online radio station where we play queer music all day long. And then it looks like our podcast company called The Qube, where we create Qube original podcasts that tell the stories of race and sexuality. And then we also are a place of discoverability, where you can find some of the very best BIPOC and queer trans people of color podcasts all in one spot. And I'm excited to be in this conversation.
Thank you, Anna. Nice to meet you. Mwaniki, over to you.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Mwaniki. I am a trained engineer and also a person who is reaching out to the underrepresented and also people with disability. In my case, it will be the blindness, people with visual impairment, in ways that they can turn around their lives with the limitations that the disability will come along. And at the same time, we also, as they turn their lives, they are also able to do it in a sustainable manner that is of benefit both to all of them and to the world, and especially the environment.
Very nice to meet you, Mwaniki, and thank you for making the time to be here. So each of you have told us a bit about the space you're in, whether it's underrepresented people, visual impairment, Farah with your foundation as well. I wanted to find out from you, can you share about your personal journey? Is there any part of your personal journey that influenced your position or the reason why you chose podcasting to be your medium? Farah, I'll start with you.
Yes, Gathoni. My personal journey literally began on the digital stage on social media. When I started sharing my story on Twitter first, and then slowly when I gained confidence to post pictures, I went on to Instagram and then on YouTube. So after hitting that confidence, I realized there's not many people who talk about their uniqueness, their different abilities and what they are going through. And so when I started sharing my story, many people responded to me. They told me, I got many messages saying, how are you so confident? How can you just stand in front of the camera, And I say, why not? Why not? Why should I hide, I want to share all this awesomeness. And so that's really it kind of led me to my journey. I realized that rare diseases are not talked about. People are ashamed of themselves. They're shy, there's a lot of biases towards us because we're different, we look different. So there's something weirdly wrong with us, And so people are kind of still shy and still afraid to show themselves and talk about these conditions, which we need to, because we suffer from this diagnosis, because not many people don't know about this condition. So this is how I was led to social media, and then podcasting became my platform because I thought it's easier, just to have my voice on and not have to worry about being, having the camera and everything all the time. It's also really quite work, expensive also. But I do still have my podcast on YouTube. So I try, if it's Instagram Live, I try other channels, try to bring the picture in as well as the voice. And I feel like podcasts are an amazing platform because globally they reach a wider range of audience than lot of these social media, because there's that algorithm and all that. But podcasts are quite accessible, if I may say so. So yeah, my personal journey has really influenced me into podcasting and sharing my different abilities.
Amazing. And Mwaniki, I want to come to you next because Farah has talked about the different abilities. And I know you started your podcast, Entropy Conversations in My Life. So what is it that made you choose podcasting? Why is it that you felt this is the platform for you to share your story?
I've been blind for about 4 or 5 years now. And the whole idea of podcasting came from a friend of mine called Sami. We used to hang out together, but he traveled out of the country. So he heard that I have had an incident, a road accident, and out of it, I got blind. And it was still unbelievable to him because he, as my fellow friend has said here, he couldn't believe that I could have the positive energy, having become blind altogether. And I spoke to him and indicated that there has been effort and need for us to keep reaching to the others so that nobody closes themselves back into their rooms and their life does not move on after that. And out of the influence, I chose podcasting as one to be the platform of choice, since I was also very new in communication. So I needed something that I could be able to handle well, and I'm very new in it. We've just started a couple of weeks ago. But however, the influence that it is having so far, we are getting calls and responses of people who have been encouraged by it, and we hope we will be able to reach many more.
Amazing. Yes, you are hosted on Afripods and you just released your first episode. Congratulations on that. Chris and Anna, I'll come to you and talk about, you both mentioned BIPOC people and people like the queer community. And I feel like it's different for me because I'm on the continent. So race doesn't play that much to me, that's not a minority thing. So how do you then, why is it you chose podcasting? And how do you communicate the people or for the people you're representing through podcasting? Chris, you can go first.
Yeah, the why for me is, as I mentioned, I came from what we call legacy media, so like major media companies, and I worked in radio, and I thought that's where my career would stay, to be honest. And working at Sirius XM Radio, I climbed the corporate ladder from an intern all the way up to the director of urban talk and comedy, which in America is the politically correct way of saying I ran Black and Latino talk and comedy programming. But we use the word urban. And through that journey, a lot of that journey was because, yes, I had these career goals, but it was also to create opportunities for other people of color in particular at the time. And I noticed climbing that corporate ladder, you see over the hedges of like who's really making the decisions. And when you finally hit a point where you think, and also everybody looks at you and your title, that you're the one who's able to make decisions, you finally get there and realize, oh no, I can't create the actual change that I thought I could. I can't create the opportunities for the people in front of the camera or in front of the mic and also behind the mic either. You know, the kind of pay that they should get or the kind of opportunities. And you know, even when I talk about opportunities for, you know, say someone trying to host a program, it's not just, oh, are we going to give a Black person a program or a queer person a program, but are we going to give them the same level of support that we give a white, cis, heterosexual male? And usually the answer was no. And I'm not just talking about Sirius XM. I was seeing it there personally. But when I looked across the media landscape, I saw that same issue at other places. And so that's when I made that intentional decision of, okay, I can, even if I do rise up this ladder far enough here at Sirius, it's not going to change the landscape for everybody else and create the larger impact that I want to see. So I need to go out and create something on my own to, one, create those opportunities, but also to showcase to other small companies and also these big companies that it's worth taking a chance on us. And so that was the basis for creating DCP Entertainment is my ability to go out there and be able to showcase this, you know, for ourselves and showcase these other companies that they should be investing in us as well.
Very true. It is important because investment, where the money is, really matters. Anna, for you with Qube and curating for Black, brown, queer, and trans people, tell me what it is that your journey has been. Why podcasting?
I love radio too. So I love radio. That's what I studied. That's what I wanted to do with my life. But I also knew that, one, I didn't want to start in a small market, right? I had done 6 years in small places and I was like, I need to go back home to the city, right? I'm from Chicago. I was like, I'm running home. And I also knew that nobody pays in radio. And so I took an unconventional journey, but I was still in the broadcasting space, just on the corporate side. But you just sort of get tired, similar to Chris, of being on somebody else's hamster wheel and wanting to create opportunities for people in my community to be seen and heard, right? And I think so often people get caught up on what they see, that for me, radio and podcasting gives us an opportunity to listen. And I think audio creates spaces for intimate relationships to be built between hosts and listeners that other mediums just can't tap into. It's incredibly difficult to tap into that same level of intimacy with video. Not that it's not great. Like, we all love video, okay? But it is just different. It's just different in what we give to the audio medium. And I really believe in that, especially with the stories that I want to celebrate and highlight and uplift, right? Those of Black and brown queer folks, because people get so caught up in what we look like and how we're presenting ourselves and not listening to the story. And so that's why I choose podcasting and radio, because I just think it's a beautiful way to communicate.
And if I can just piggyback on that one quick second, I forgot to mention with podcasting as well, like, it's such a young medium. It's still in its early stage compared to other mediums. And so there's even more of an opportunity to set the culture and create the equity now, as opposed to trying to reverse course, you know, a decade or so down the road, like some of these other mediums.
Very true. And Anna, you brought up something interesting that I don't think I've thought of before, where sometimes video takes away from it because you're so busy trying to see how the person looks and figure that out other than listen to the story that they're telling. And I'd never thought about it that way before.
I just want to add, sorry, Gathoni. I just want to add on. I think what we said was so true. It's a new medium, it's young. And what you guys are doing at Afripods is also awesome because you're giving us in Africa our own medium, because I mean all the major social media platforms, they're not ours. You know what I mean? They're not African owned, so they don't understand us, they don't understand our culture. They just don't get us, So I feel like Afripods is that space for African podcasters at home and abroad, to just feel like, this is a safe space, this is my space. This is mine, I can call it mine. I honestly feel that.
Thank you so much, Farah. Thank you. And we do think it is important because, like Anna and Chris are saying, sometimes there's no space for your people. And if there's no space for them, it's easier to create the space and then let people come into the space that you're in. And so thank you very much, Farah, for that. I wanted to find out from you, because each of you is representing people with different identities and abilities. And in your different spaces, it is seen as minority. So are there any challenges you have faced in the podcasting world based on the people you represent, whether ability-wise or identity-wise? Chris, I'll start with you.
Well, it's funny. It's something that, I talk behind the scenes with other networks, Anna being one of them, where I think one of the things that I noticed the most from the network perspective is how people try to, and this also happens for individual shows, but how they try to take advantage of us with contracts or take advantage of us with terms where they assume that we should just be happy to have a foot in the door, that we should just be happy that they're talking to us, where they're not giving us the same kind of contracts or the same kind of leeway that they're giving to other shows. And so it's important that we have these networks like we have here in this conversation, but also these networks that we have through like BIPOC podcast creators and Black Podcasting Association, these places where we can talk to each other and say, hey, I have this contract. And yeah, maybe I'm not comfortable letting you see the entire contract, but there's a few things in here that seem a little off to me. Is that normal? How did you work against that? So I think it's important us building this community to be able to understand what we're worth. Because I think that's really hard for us to understand, especially when we're new into this space. And I do feel like people try to take advantage of us, whether it be because we are Black, whether we're queer or disabled. Like, I think that's when they really try to take advantage, because you haven't had an opportunity to have a platform, and now they're gonna try to take your IP, or they're gonna shortchange you in certain ways. So yeah, I think that's where I feel like we sometimes get taken advantage.
Very true. And Mwaniki, I know you've only been in the space for a really short time, but have you faced any challenges in the time you've been in the space?
Not really, not much. We just made a couple of episodes so far. The assistance to get the professional, skill of maybe editing, it is not easily available for people like us. And we are required to also participate in it. This is something new that we are learning all together about media. And so it takes a little bit longer than the standard time that it will take for others to make similar event, a similar program.
Very true. Something, honestly, I'd never thought about before, but you're right. It's the accessibility as well in the podcasting world for people with different abilities. Anna, any challenges from your side?
Oh, where do we start? But we ain't gonna go through all of them, okay? I think what's already been said is accurate. I also will say discoverability in podcasting is really hard. That's why in Afripods it's so important. That's why I wanted to create the Qube, because the two biggest ways folks find podcasting is through a Google search and word of mouth. Now, that ain't got nothing to do with social media. That ain't got nothing to do with anything other than who you are and you having a platform, right? And that's tough. People want to enter the space because they got something to say. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are already built a platform or have an audience. It's just that they are a subject matter expert in that thing that they want to go and talk about. And so finding your podcast because you started it today is really hard. And so having platforms like the ones we've created here are so incredibly important because we need a destination. We need somewhere we can go. We know that this place was made and created for us, right? Similar to what Farah was saying. And then I know if I go here, it's been curated for me. And we know that other places are not, and you can feel it. You don't see yourself represented, and we can't be what we do not see, right? And so we have to create these spaces for ourselves. So I think on top of what everybody else is going to say, I'd probably say discoverability and probably building your audience are probably two of the toughest things around the space.
You cannot be what you cannot see. Very amazing. That's a quote. I mean, we should make a t-shirt of that for sure. Farah, tell me, what are some of the challenges you face?
I'm going to add on to discoverability. Personally, I have to literally not hit my podcast on my own. So Anna, I have two people who help me with the recording and editing, or I'm the one who does all the social media posts. So you say the teasers, the videos that go out on TikTok, on Shorts, Instagram, name it, Reels. So I feel like at me as one person, it's so hard for me. Sometimes I'm so tired, but I know I need to spread the word so that people listen to the next episode. And then obviously you won't know there's an episode if I don't tell you there's an episode. You have to keep sharing the link and whatnot. Another thing was, with my unique set of abilities, I had been to other shows, whether it's on TV, radio, or not. And I noticed everyone would make me sign a release form. So I really had that in my head a lot. And when I started my podcast, I was like, no, I need to sign a release form just for my own safety, so that I just need to be safe, because I don't know, someone may turn out tomorrow and say, I don't want you to post my episode, So I really had to think about my own safety. So these are some small things that not many people know about. And last time when you were at the Raja Media, we talked about all this, and I was so shocked to see many people didn't know about consent forms or release forms. And I was like, oh, those are important, guys. You need to keep yourself safe, you need to keep yourself up to date with all this. Because nowadays there's a lot of people copywriting issues and whatnot. So yeah, all these, and I feel like there's not much education on all of this. So yeah, I guess these are definitely some of the challenges. Also, I feel like equipment also, using the equipment, whether it's recording online or whether recording physically, some of the apps are not as accessible to many people, with different abilities. So I feel there is a challenge there.
It's very true. You and Chris bring up an interesting conversation with contracts, because the truth is a lot of people are afraid to ask the questions, and a lot of people who have the information don't want to share the information because there's almost a feeling like we're competing, even though you're actually going to help the next person. So I think that's a conversation we need to have on a whole other different day on contracts.
Yeah, we really need that conversation.
Yeah,
let's collaborate. Yeah,
we should. What you should not, because I know there's some release forms that are excessive. So what is it that you should look for and say no to, as at the same time no one knows? And sometimes if you're in the minority, just being allowed into the room makes you feel like you should appreciate it. So you don't want to cause any disturbance a lot of times. And those are the conversations I think we need to have in the spaces we're creating for ourselves, for sure.
And I'll quickly say that. I'm sorry, but I feel like I need to say it for folks who might get a contract. Like, lawyers put things in the contract sometimes because they want to take it out later. They know that there's going to be a negotiation, so they'll literally put things in the contract so they can take it out to say, "Oh, look, I'm being nice and taking something out for you." So go through that thing with a fine tooth comb. I've literally heard a CFO tell their the person who was giving us the contract, "Hey, I know this looks weird, but let's see if they catch it." Like, they literally talk like this internally. So look out for these things. This is just a negotiation tactic. Don't be afraid to push back on contracts.
Yeah, and get a lawyer. Like, I know we all can read. It is not about that. It is about being able to interpret what is being written. And legal language is not how we all talk. So please do not skimp or think you can do it yourself. Okay, don't do it.
Very true. Zachary, now you know it's you've gotten information in advance that's in the space.
Oh, yes, I have. Oh, yeah, sure.
You have someone to go through it 3-4 times for you. So in your different spaces and with the work you have done, Zachary, I know you said you've already started getting feedback. Farah, each of you saying you've gotten feedback from the people you represent. How do you feel that the representation based on your platform is helping with the understanding and acceptance of people who have different identities or abilities? Mwaniki, I'll start with you, because for one episode to already have feedback is an amazing thing. So how do you feel like the representation is helping with the promotion of understanding the space that you're in with your different abilities?
Yes. What is interesting, actually, out of the feedback that I've gotten, is not just about feedback from people with visual impairment limitations. They have gotten the feedback from other persons with a diverse diverse limitations. And it is all down to they are expressing that they do not understand what resources are available to them directly from our government levels, and what other specialized resources could be available that are being given out to people with these limitations. So there is a huge disconnect between we, the people who will require the help, the needy, and those people and the organizations that are helping us achieve them. So there's a link there that is not very good. People do not understand either of the other end, and a lot of those people who would come through with assistance to us, usually at the end, as it was expressed, at the end of their period, say an annual period or something, they go back with their resources because there was nobody who reached out to them to be assisted. And as the people who require assistance, we don't know much about them. So this gap, this phase is one that we also are of interest trying to bridge it between the assisters, the sponsors, and us, the needy people.
Amazing. Bridging the gap through podcasting. I'd never thought about it that way. Anna, what about you in your space?
Yeah, I hear from people all the time. Because all types of folks listen to my show. I created it for one group of people, but I think everybody listening. I'm actually thinking about pushing out a survey in Q4 so I can figure out exactly who is listening, because my audience on social media, I believe, is very different than the audience that is listening to my podcast today. Because I get messages from people who say, I have never heard anyone tell the news in the way you tell it. I've never heard the stories around Black trans folks, and really showing their humanity. I hear people tell me all types of things. And that is the affirmation I often need to give me that little extra that I need to get the episode done that week, or the little extra I need to make that post that week. But I hear from folks all the time that the news that I cover, because I don't cover everything that's awful or that is happening right in the community, we can choose to do something different in podcasting than traditional news outlets, that people don't even know that we're experiencing joy in the midst of all of the negative things that are happening in the world politically, to the community, that there are people doing amazing work and there are organizations doing amazing work. And oftentimes people don't know their names, right? We just hope somebody's fighting on our behalf, but we have to support these organizations that are fighting on our behalf. So I give them a name, and I am able to amplify their work. So I hear that from a lot of people.
That is good. Amplification of the work being done. Farah, what about you? I know you've been in this space for a long time and you have been a representative for a long time. So how do you feel like it has promoted understanding and acceptance?
100%. It actually humanizes our experiences. When we share our diverse, unique stories, we're hearing a human side of us, compared to what you may have thought of us. And so when I share my stories, and the people that I talk to, they don't have any sort of condition or anything. The narration battle, yes, they were all quite normal, but each and every one of them had that something in them. They had an experience that they had never shared before, and I don't know, it just gave them that freedom to share and talk about it and feel it's okay, to talk about it. Sometimes it's not about a sickness or about a different ability. Sometimes it's just, it should be something that you've gone through and you've come out of it and you want to say that, I did that. I came out of that. And I went through this, You want to tell the world that it's okay to feel bad. It's okay to be down. It's okay to go underground, and representation just broadens the horizons of the people, the audiences. It creates empathy, number one. It builds that sense of empathy. We're busting some myths, we're busting a lot of myths. Like you would think that maybe someone if they had gone through something, maybe, oh my God, they did something totally different. But then when you hear the story, you're like, wait, what? Is that what really happened? So there's so many myths that we're busting, I feel like one, we are celebrating our unique diversities, our unique abilities, our unique experiences, one story at a time.
That is amazing, and creating humanity in it, where even people who are not having the same experience as you are able to relate to your stories and find something that is the same for each of us. That is very deep. I hadn't thought about it that way. Chris, what about you and your work at DCP?
Honestly, I feel like I'm about to echo everything that Farah just said. I think the most powerful thing, and many powerful things she just said, but like the humanizing experiences is something that we hang our hat on for everything that we do, even if it's something that's celebrity oriented, because they're just human beings as well. And they're struggling with some of the same things, but they also have the camera on them. And so it's important to kind of see what they've been through, but also it's that relatability, like Farah said as well, to be like, oh, I've been through something similar. And like, now you have this touch point to see, wow, they made it through and they made it to these heights. I can do it too. But like, we have a project, Say Their Name, that I have the, ability to do with my chief operating officer, Adele Coleman. We write, produce, host this thing together. It's all around police violence within Black communities around America. And we literally go into the homes of these families impacted by police violence. Most of their loved ones have been killed, at the hands of police wrongfully. And these people, some of them, their stories have never been told, but some have been told. They've been in mainstream media, but they've never actually been able to tell their story the way they want to. Even the most well-meaning media outlets will just use sound bites for clickbait. And, they might be well-meaning. They're helicoptering in and saying, okay, this is how we need to support the community, but they're not actually listening to the people who've experienced this and asking them, what do they need? What's going to make an impact? And so, I think one of the things that we have loved in doing this series is, one, it's been great that our last season, which was really focused on women impacted by police violence, a lot of the stories that we were able to tell, those actually went to the UN now. Somebody put together this package and they're working with the UN to try to help end violence, but also recognizing that women, Black women in particular, are very much impacted by this. And so our work has now been taken to the UN, which feels good. But then I think what feels the best is hearing directly from these families of the impact that our stories have had on them. this therapy session, essentially, of them being able to tell these stories. And we approach it too. And again, the Farah and Anna both said this as well. It's like the humanizing aspect of not just focusing on the negative, but let's talk about the positive too. So part of the story is, let's talk about the loved one that you lost. Let's talk about what was their sense of humor like, what were the holidays like, what were they looking forward to in their life? That way we can now have empathy for what is lost. And also so we can see this person as a human and not just focus on the tragedy. And, I think one of my favorite comments we got from a family was, we interviewed her and two or three of her sons, and that she's very close knit with her sons, but she heard stories from them in our documentary that she had never heard. She's like, I had no idea they had went through this. I had no idea that this is what they were thinking. Thank you so much for doing this project. So I feel closer to my family even more than I did before. And so I think that's the power of what all of us are doing here is telling those stories, whether it be our own personal ones or helping others tell their own stories, so that we don't feel so alone. And so, I think, podcasting is just super powerful in that way.
It's true. Representation and humanity allows access. Like Farah mentioned very early on, she believes it's low-hanging fruit for your access into telling stories and things like that in podcasting. So I think for us, it is important to be able to take advantage of it. So I wanted to find out, specifically in the podcasting space, what are the ways podcast creators can be more inclusive and accessible? And I want to speak to Farah and Mwaniki specifically. How is it that podcasters or the community can be more accessible for people with different abilities? Tell us what you need from us. Mwaniki, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. That is what would rank up there as the big limitation. I haven't had this experience very long, so therefore I may not have collected as much of the of the challenges and limitations on it. So, but that one is the one that has already hit me already. So I will keep observing and updating as we go on.
Cool. And if you're watching this and you're an editor in Nairobi, you need to holler at Mwaniki because he needs your help. He's important. So reach out, give him his contact and we can make that happen. Farah, what about you? How can we make podcasting more accessible?
I feel like we need to collaborate with experts, make them more accessible. Experts, different podcasts, trying to include more diverse voices on their platform, talk to others who are doing the same, engaging with your audience. I feel like there's a lot of feedback in the audience. So as a podcaster, I feel like turning to your audience first, engaging with them, building a community with them. That's super important. Oh man, what else? Educating ourselves, I literally learned on my own how to edit and whatnot, handling my whole podcast. So I feel like there needs to be that a place where we can come together and exchange notes on how to edit or what is the best app to use, or just tips and tricks of the game, literally. So I think that all comes back to having a community where we can all turn to and feel safe and not shy to ask someone. I feel like most of the time we are afraid to ask because of our different abilities. It might sound like a stupid question, but no, don't be afraid to ask. And I've been trying to get over that too. But definitely collaborating with experts.
Amazing. You're right. No question. I always tell people no question is a silly question. So if you have a question, ask it. Always ask the question. There's nothing that I think is silly. So for each of you, what advice would you give to someone in this spaces that you represent who wants to come into podcasting? Because Farah has brought up something interesting where I don't know where to start. So for you who's already in the space, what would your advice to them be? Anna, I'll start with you.
Just start. Don't get caught up in this rhetoric that the podcasting is oversaturated and get caught up in this rhetoric that there's too many out here already and da-da-da-da-da. I find that every person that wants to start a pod, you typically has a unique perspective that they can bring to that topic. And what I've also found is that there's somebody that will listen to you. Now, let's be clear, it might not be your friends because they might not listen to podcasts, okay? It's going to be probably people that you have never met before. But if you have a need, someone else most likely has that same need. And I think that oftentimes we can get caught up in our own heads. I'm a Virgo. I will sit here and overthink the whole situation. Okay. The whole world has passed me by the time I hit play. Okay. Or record. So I would say get started. I'd say align yourself and meet with other creatives who are doing the same work. Listen and study the craft. There are people out here who are doing podcasting at a very high level and are doing it successfully and consistently. Listen to their podcast, even if it's a topic that maybe isn't something you're interested in, you'll get ideas and you'll be inspired about things that you can bring to your own content, right? I think it's so incredibly important to study, to get it done. And whatever you do, just be consistent. Okay, we got to plan and prioritize. We ain't gonna get into no consulting session right now, but there are strategies that you should use so that you don't experience the dreaded pod fade that happens, right? Chris, you probably know the stats. I think most people don't get past 5 episodes. It is going to be your prep and preparation and your commitment to whatever you're talking about, right? Because it's an opportunity for you to grow your platform and your voice. And so you don't want to start something that you can't finish.
Pod fade is real. I had a conversation with some podcasters who were saying, if you can't make it to 20 episodes, don't start, because 20 episodes is like the hardest one to get to. Once you've gotten 20, it's like, okay, we can do this. So pod fade is a real problem. Farah, what advice would you have for someone who wants to start?
I think I'm going to echo Anna. Start. Start with what you have, number one. You have a phone, you have a microphone, you have earphones. Just start with that. Just do it, Maybe sit and listen to your voice. Do a few practice episodes, listen to your voice. Share it with some people in your group, in your circle, and just some advice. Listen to them. And then just one day wake up and just don't think about anything and post it. Yeah, and just let it go. Just do it, it's like just jump off that cliff and just do it. But yes, obviously, pod fade is also another thing. So I always feel like choose something that you can talk about, like something that you know. Maybe you learned how to cook in a different way. You'll obviously continue talking about that instead of talking about something that you just learned yesterday and you're really not that into. So talk about what you love doing. And I feel like your own life, your own personal journey is a great place to start. You can tell people about your experiences and what you went through. Maybe there's no lesson there, but hey, that's content. You shared something, So bring your passion forward. Don't be afraid. Embrace your authenticity. Just be you. Don't listen to another podcast and try to speak like that person or try to have their accent or anything. Just be you, just you. People will listen to you. They want to listen to you. Yeah. I think that those are the ones that come to my head right now.
Authenticity. I absolutely love that, because sometimes once you get on a podcast, you feel like you need to turn into a radio voice and you want to be, hi, everybody, welcome today too. You just have to be like, no, it's me, it's fine, never mind. Chris, I want to come to you to ask for advice for podcasters and also people who want to create spaces for podcasters or produce the stories as well. So what would you tell each of the groups of people?
Yeah, I agree with what everybody said so far too, in terms of just do it. But I guess I'd add one additional step before that as well, is listen to some podcasts, listen to some of the topics or, shows that do the kind of topics that you want to do. One, so you can kind of hear what they're doing, but also so you can learn how you're going to differentiate yourself. How is your show going to be different? And you can be different just based on your personality, but maybe there's a new way to present the material that this other show isn't doing. But also it helps you then learn who are the other people in your space that you can collaborate with. You can do, these promo swaps, and now you can show their audience what you bring to the table, and you can show your audience what that podcaster brings to the table. This is a collaborative space, as we've talked about here. It's on demand. Someone else's downloads aren't going to take away from my downloads necessarily. So, I think that research ahead of time will help you figure out what your show is going to be, but also help you to find your own community, which is the second piece of advice I want to give, is find that community. There's the built-in communities like what Afripods does, what, BIPOC Podcast Creators does, the Podcast Academy, Black Podcasting Association. There's lots of different communities out there for various different kinds of identities. And so, I think finding that's going to be great, because now you have people to reach out to, much like Anna was saying, like the questions that you have, and maybe some of the challenges that you're going to face, others have faced them or going through them now. So you can learn from them. I think some of the best learning you can do is from the failures of others, as long as they're going to be open and honest about it. And most of these communities that I just mentioned, people in those communities are very willing and able to be able to help you and be able to talk through some of those things before you face them yourself. So I think those community pieces are really big. In terms of creating one of those communities or creating those networks that support podcasters, I think it's literally just talking to podcasters, much like we're doing here, and asking, what are the pain points? What are the things that you're struggling with? How can we be of assistance? I think there are lots of different learning platforms out there, but I don't know if they necessarily are talking directly to the podcasters to say, in this moment, what is it that you need? There's this big shift in the video right now. And so maybe people have a lot of questions on, should I create video? What are the resources I need for that? So maybe there's as a platform, maybe that becomes your niche, that you're helping podcasters who are trying to make that pivot. So, that's just a quick example, but I think it's going down and just finding out from the individuals what is that they need, or also looking at buckets. So I'm going to create a network, much like Anna has done. It's going to be BIPOC and queer. Like, make sure it's very niche focused. You focus on that, and you can grow from there. It's not saying that you're limiting yourself to that, but that's how you're going to build your core, and then you can expand from there. And so, you can bring together like-minded podcasts to help to bring in new audiences, but also now that can be a way to bring in monetization partners, people who want to sell to that kind of audience. And now they know that your network of podcast creators represents those audiences that they're trying to reach. And so that creates more value for everybody involved. And I just want to go back for one quick second when you're asking about the accessibility, because it actually sparked something that I thought about before and just haven't thought about in a while, especially listening to Zachary, which was, when it comes to people who are sight impaired, like various different, ailments in that area, podcasting a lot of times for discovery is based on what your thumbnail looks like and what the description is, things that are very visual. It will be great for a platform to be able to be created, or a Spotify or an Apple to be able to expand their platform for people to hear like little quick trailers or quick little episodes. Like how are people who are not able to see the podcast art, how are they going to discover a new podcast without knowing the name in advance? Social media helps with that a little bit, but I think that could really be a way to help with accessibility, especially for visually impaired.
That's very true. And when you speak about community, I agree, it's very important. So we've been building some with Afripods, but on the continent also, we have some like Z Pod Hub, Niger Pod Hub, APV are doing a lot of work trying to build podcasting, a lot of education in those spaces. Baraza is doing a lot of work in Nairobi as well, getting people together to learn just different things about podcasting. So community is very important. Zachary, I know you've been in the space for a very short time. So maybe what I'd ask you is how, like Chris just brought it up, that some platforms are not accessible. So how would you want platforms to adjust for you, your visual impairment, that would help you be able to access or understand and find podcasts better?
Well, they could start with making their accessibility tools quite available on their platform, and and then we pick it up from there. We try to work with the standard accessibility tools that should be available, and maybe even in some of them, as it has been mentioned, they could even be having a more advanced options for accessibility, and in that way we'll be more independent when we are working on our podcasting and preparation of our programs and episodes.
You're right, the need for independence. So
yeah.
As we come to the end of the panel, I want to thank you all for making the time to be here. So I want you to let me know where we can find you. And I want you to shine a light on any podcasts, creators, or resources that you feel like people need to come to. You're allowed to self-plug shamelessly. I'm here for that. But any podcast creators and resources that you think we should find, and where can we find you? Zachary, I'll start with you. Where can we find you, and any resources you want to shine a light on?
On Afripods, we are also there as Entropy. And that's all.
Thank you for being And you're right, you are hosted on Afripods. We're very proud to be your hosting platform. Thank you. Shameless plug. Well. Farah, let me know where we can find you and shine a light on any podcast creators or resources.
So on all social media platforms, you'll find me as Farah Khaleck, just my name. My podcast is called Self-Care Chats with Farah. It's on all platforms, including Afripods, Spotify, Google, everywhere. And I listen to Schreiber podcast. It's a Kenyan podcast a lot. Legally Clueless. These are two amazing podcasts that share unique experiences, unique stories that touch on different, diverse topics. So yeah, those are must. Those are my two picks. But yeah, you can find me on social media everywhere.
Amazing. And make sure you check out her recommendations. Anna, I'll come to you, and then Chris will end with you. Anna.
Giving me a chance to plug all the things. Thank you so much. So you can follow me on social media at Anna Deshawn everywhere. So wherever your favorite one is, just plug in there. And then follow us at the Qube app, TheQube app. And you can discover all of our pods, our Qube originals, as well as the ones that we amplify within our network. And if I needed to plug some podcasts, this is really easy work. So my podcast is Queer News, everywhere that you listen to pods. We also have a new one with DCP Entertainment. My co-host is Adele Coleman, called The Head Nod. And our first season is about being Black at a PWI, at a predominantly white institution and in predominantly white spaces. And that has become an instant fave for a lot of folks. And then we have another collab with Edit Audio. It's a WNBA podcast for all of my sports fans out here. It's called Rebound Revolution. And I'm excited that we are up for a Signal Award for Best LGBTQ Podcast, People's Choice. So, it's still time to vote. And so I'm excited about those pods. So just feel free to just discover the Qube and begin discovering and checking us out.
Congratulations on the nomination. Let us know where we can find all of the details to vote. You said it's still open, so.
Yes, it's still open. Oh, you go to the Signal Awards. I believe it's vote.signalawards.com. And you can go to the category, just sign in, and then, vote away.
Let's vote for Anna, everybody. Chris.
Yes, vote for Anna here, even though we always lose to her in the Black Podcasting Awards. But it's fine. It's okay if I'm gonna lose to anybody. So I personally am really bad on social media in terms of I just don't post a lot. I go through these ups and downs, it's where I just don't post. So follow at DCP Official. That's much more fun to follow than following me personally. All different platforms, with the exception of TikTok. If you want to follow us on TikTok, it's at DCP _pods. So DCP _pods. We have some projects ourselves coming out, a new one coming out in a couple of weeks called Lasagna Ganja with former rapper and former host of Pimp My Ride Exhibit, and this woman named the Cannabis Cutie, who is just a wealth of knowledge in the cannabis space, history, and analyzing things. But it's gonna be about the layers of conversations around cannabis, which I'm really excited about. We also have some other big projects coming up, so go to dcpofficial.com to see all that. And then just some of the communities that I want to be able to plug. I've mentioned a few of them here already, and I'm on the board of advisors for a few of them. The Podcast Academy, I think is a great support, and they really want to be more international. So even if you're not in America, we really want to get this in the hands of people in Africa and beyond. Also, there is the BIPOC Podcast Creators I'm also on the board of. There's also the Podcasting Seriously Awards Fund. So any of you who are looking to apply for awards, like the Signal Awards or Black Podcasting Awards, any of those awards, we will reimburse you up to $200 for your submissions. Literally, all you just have to do is prove that you submitted your podcast and that it's actually a podcast. We have so much money to give away. We are begging people. And also, we have opened it up to learning. If you take a course, up to $500 will reimburse you for a podcasting course. So Podcasting Seriously Awards Fund, also Black Podcast Association. I'm not on the board of that, but we are very heavily involved with their organization. And then the last one I'll shout out as well, Black Podcasting Awards will be well, I don't know when this is coming out, but Black Podcasting Awards is either out there right now or is coming up this Sunday. And it's actually being hosted at our facility, Podstream Studios in New York City. So I'm really excited to be working hand in hand with them. The Black Podcasting Awards, much lower barrier to entry when it comes to cost. They give feedback when you submit for your award. If you don't get accepted, they let you know, hey, here's some things you might want to try to get better. So I think that's like one of the most community-oriented kind of award programs that I've ever seen. So that's a nice long list. But yeah, there's a lot of support out there for you.
Amazing. Thank you. And thank you for shining a light to each of these people and communities. Thank you for making the time to be here. Happy International Podcast Day. For everyone watching, thank you for joining us. I have been your host, Gathoni. I'm the community manager at Afripods. You can find me at Afripods on all social media platforms. I'm also podcasting in Africa on all social media platforms. And I'm also a podcaster. My podcast name is OK Kiasi. That's OKAYKIASI. You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts, but especially on Afripods. Thank you for making the time. Happy International Podcast Day, and bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.